Do the self-proclaimed and unelected COVID-19 experts declare their conflicts of interest to the public or the mainstream media before their hysterical groupthink gets amplified? For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini, and I want to highlight some what I thought were unfounded comments from one of the key members of the Ontario Science Table, Dr. Peter Juni. He is the scientific director for the Ontario Science Table, or the OST. That's a group of primarily unelected, self-proclaimed experts that appeared out of thin air early on into the COVID-19 pandemic in the summer of 2020, after Ontario Premier Doug Ford claimed to be listening to the experts, but refused to name them. Dr. Juni is an epidemiologist who teaches at the University of Toronto and does health research at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto. It doesn't appear that he's ever treated patients or provided direct patient care. More recently, his expertise was featured on CTV News Ottawa. Have a listen.
We are really good right now. We have built up a lot of immunity, a lot of it through third doses, and some people also receiving their first and second dose, but also a lot of people through infection. And provided that we now just still, continue our efforts a bit, the good weather will help us, and the summer could really look good. We just need to be aware of that. This will become much more seasonal now. Therefore, we will need to enjoy ourselves, late spring, summer, and then early autumn.
Well, seasonality has always been an argument of expert epidemiologists, and that we will always see waves of respiratory viruses as we have since literally the beginning of time. Why would Juni allude to the fact that we should focus on enjoying ourselves in the spring, summer, and early autumn? Let's listen to what else he has to say.
If you haven't had your third dose yet, please get it. Especially, just looking at the 40 to 50-year-olds, only 50% have received their third dose. My age group, only 40%. And, in the 60s, only 40% who still need it. And in the 60s, 25% still need their third dose. They shall get it because it will decrease their risk of ending up in a hospital or in an ICU fivefold or so, further decrease it.
He basically begs for people to get their third doses at the end there. A closer look into Dr. Juni's declared conflicts of interest might speak volumes as to why. Under his About section on the Ontario Science Table website, there are 7 different PDFs of declared conflicts of interest. They average 5 pages each in length, and for the most part, Juni's institution was paid directly, which he, of course, then gets paid by, and begs to reason that you would not bite the hand that feeds, especially when your annual salary at one institution is in and around $300,000 a year. Oddly, Peter Juni's last name is spelled slightly differently, so it wasn't an immediate hit on the Sunshine's List search. Dr. Juni's institution received a grant in relation to COVID-19 from Apelli Therapeutics, which is a Canadian pharmaceutical company founded in 2015 to advance the global fight against infectious disease. Other grants include notable pharmaceutical companies like AstraZeneca and Eli Lilly. On page 4 of the document, it looks like Juni has a direct conflict with Hicks Morley for expert testimony. He was a paid expert witness on vaccine mandates for a university, a hospital, and another public employer. Some of you may remember that Hicks Morley, specifically their lawyer, Michael Kennedy, is the same law firm that denied fourth-year nursing student Catherine Bishop, who I interviewed a few weeks ago when she had her religious exemption denied by that third-party law firm. Small world, isn't it? In 6 out of the 7 PDFs on the 4th page, Dr. Juni has paid to his institution conflicts with Amgen and Fresenius for travel expenses. Amgen is a multinational biopharmaceutical company, and Fresenius is another pharmaceutical company specific to dialysis services. Oddly, on only one of the PDFs, the second last one, This declaration of the conflict changes to one that was paid directly to Juni. On this PDF, Juni also received grant funding to his institution by CanCovid, where he declares he was a co-principal investigator. The official CanCovid website, which appears to largely be funded by the Government of Canada, shows Juni as a network science advisor alongside Nathan Stahl. Some of you may remember Stahl from several weeks ago when he lied and defamed Rebel News for an alleged harassment attack that never actually happened. In actuality, I had interviewed independent journalist Rosemary Frey on a previous occasion where she mentions Stahl, who has his own questionable conflicts of interest, but who resigned from the Ontario Science Table in August 2021 to seek provincial Liberal nomination. Well, apparently Rosemary shouted at Stahl from a distance that he was evil and shame, which I guess now somehow constitutes as harassment to those pearl-clutching Liberals. Anyway, so I reached out to Dr. Juni to inquire about these conflicts, and I asked him to disclose the total monetary value of employment, research grants, consultation, funding, and fees that he had received from public sources since March 2020. I also asked him his employment, research, grants, consultation funding, and fees, etc., how those affect his ability to provide unbiased and balanced reports to the Ontario government and subsequently to our government-funded media outlets. Lastly, I wanted to know if he or any company or consulting firm that he's associated with benefited financially or personally since lockdowns began in March 2020. If so, how and to what extent, monetarily or otherwise. Now, I give credit where credit is due because Dr. Juni did respond to me, and he let me know that all money went to the institution where he works. The only exception was for the fees he will receive later this year for providing that expert testimony, remember, to that law firm in 4 separate court cases. He invited me to reach out to the firms directly for more information. Dr. Juni doesn't feel like any of these activities have affected his own role in providing reports to government decision makers and in providing information to the public. But it begs to question, have you ever seen the mainstream media note one of the experts in their conflicts of interest? There are many, and they are far-reaching. The connections within the pandemonium generators are eerie. But the general public has no idea unless they dig below the surface themselves. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. It really is a small world, isn't it? To stay up to date with our latest reports and get insider scoops, don't forget to subscribe to our various paywalled shows at rebelnewsplus.com. You will gain access to extra content and full-length, in-depth TV-style shows. All of that can be found at rebelnewsplus.com.